Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. Most people have experienced at least one paranormal incident which leaves them wondering for the rest of their life. Here is a collection of odd and unexplained occurrences which haunt the memories of 5 Weird World viewers. No one there. Stephen Hibbler has written to us from Warrington in the UK. Now aged 68, he told of some strange incidents that happened when he was about 16 years old. His sister's fiance's name was Michael, and the couple were living at Stephen's family's home in Fairclough Avenue, Warrington. One evening, Stephen arrived home from hanging out with his friends. As he was walking up the stairs, Michael was walking down the stairs. The two guys chatted for a minute, and then Stephen went to his room. At about 11 o'clock that night, Michael told him that Stephen's sister had come home from babysitting, and a conversation started about something he can't remember. At this stage, Stephen spoke to Michael about what they had been talking about while passing on the stairs. Michael said that he was never there and that no conversation had taken place, despite the fact that Stephen had had a witness with him at the time. After this doppelganger experience, there was more strangeness around this house. Stephen says that at another time, his late mother Betty walked out of the house shouting for her next-door neighbour friend, Sheila. At that same time, Sheila had come out of her house shouting for Betty. The family's front doors were only about 1 foot apart, and so they would have had to have walked around each other or through each other, and yet each found no one there. They still don't know to this day how to explain the anomaly, apart from the fact that the two women must have walked through each other as the doors were so close. The original house is no longer there, but the family talked about the odd occurrence for years. On again, off again. Pam Christie sent an account of this strange experience which happened to one of her students. Some years ago, the young man Steve spent an extended spring break sailing to the Solomon Islands with his father. It was a long and difficult voyage, so when they finally reached Honiara, they celebrated by having dinner in an upscale restaurant there. The dress code for men was a sports jacket and tie. At some point during the meal, Steve noticed a large nearby table with a family group, which included 2 parents and a large number of well-behaved children. But the next time he looked over at the table, the man was naked from the waist up. There hadn't been time for him to remove his shirt, tie and jacket since Steve had first seen him a moment before, and there was no reason for him to have done so, yet there he was. A moment later, Steve looked again, and the man was clothed as before. The next time he looked, the clothing was missing. At this point, Steve told his father what he was seeing. His father then moved to Steve's side of the table, and they both witnessed it. Sometimes the man was wearing clothes on his upper body, and sometimes he wasn't. Neither his family, the waiting staff, nor the other diners seemed to notice anything. The story of Steve and his father's experience of this bizarre phenomenon has haunted Pam for years. Elusive knife. Will Lawrence remembers a very creepy incident that occurred when he was young, aged about 10 to 12 years at the time. He, his mum and his brother lived with her boyfriend who loved building scale models, mostly of planes. One day he came into the living room and said that he was missing his X-Acto knife, which he used on his model kits. The whole family began looking for it everywhere for what seemed like hours. Will, his mum and even his brother, as well as the boyfriend, searched extensively, and he remembers like it was yesterday that all of them checked specifically the top of the TV. This was an old TV that sat on a small table, and they all checked this spot many times. Then, just as they were all about to give up, Will's mum, with all of them in the living room, glanced at the TV, and guess what was sitting on top of the TV, untouched? The X-Acto knife. Will's mom still swears to this day that it was not there before, and all of the family members swear to this day that they all checked the TV many times, and so remain in a complete quandary how it could just appear all of a sudden like this. The incident never happened again, but he still wonders, was it gremlins, or had it been temporarily relegated to another universe? Floating figure. Brian Keane has written of an eerie random occurrence which manifested to him and another witness when driving on the outskirts of Dublin in Ireland. He was in the front passenger seat of the car, and his then partner at the time was driving. She happened to be the daughter of a famous psychic medium in Ireland. Brian says that they were travelling along a dark country road on the outskirts of the city when out of the corner of his right eye he caught sight of a bizarre figure. A woman dressed in Victorian-era clothing crossed the road in front of them, clearly a female and also clearly a ghost, as she levitated across their path. Both he and his partner watched the floating apparition and then looked at each other. He said that while the spectre was scary, it was great to see some sort of confirmation of life after death. Stunning save. When Gina Barker was 12 in 1972, she and a girlfriend were left alone to swim in her aunt's swimming pool. This was a 1960s cement pool with a cement deck around it, and there was a rope with tiny buoys on it that divided the 10-foot deep end from the 3-foot shallow end. Gina's friend Wanda couldn't swim, and so the two were chatting at the rope. Gina was on the deep side and Wanda was on the shallow side. Gina's Aunt Betty said to them, "Girls, I'll be right back. I'm going to make your lunch and I'll bring it out to you in a moment. Wanda, please stay on the shallow end and I'll be coming right back." The two friends chatted for a minute, and when they had finished their conversation, Gina turned to swim off. Wanda, being somewhat of a prankster, jumped on Gina's back and down they went. Wanda was now panicking and began digging her fingernails into Gina's shoulders. Gina was trying to peel her off to pull her to the side, but those old rectangular cement pools were long and wide. Gina couldn't get her off. She couldn't breathe, and her vision and strength were beginning to disappear. All Gina remembers thinking at this time was, "I'm going to drown at 12 years old, and my mother will never survive my death." She could no longer feel anything, and she couldn't see. All of a sudden, a force that she still can't put into words lifted both of the girls up into the air in a funnel of water like a vacuum. She guesses that they must have been raised 6 feet into the air. Gina still couldn't see, but she remembers thinking that when they hit the cement deck with the same force they were lifted out with, they would break every bone in their bodies. However, when they landed on the deck, it was as gentle as a feather. They were coughing up water and shaking, and Wanda asked, "What was that? What just happened?" Based on what Gina knew as a 12-year-old, she responded, "Jesus just saved us." Gina was raised in a church-going family, while Wanda had never gone to church. However, after this incident, she went alone to Sunday school every Sunday until the girls were in high school. Gina says that it took them a couple of years before they told anyone because they didn't think anyone would believe them. She was also afraid that her mother would never let her swim in her aunt's pool again. Now 64, Gina says that she knows a bit more spiritually, but it was a powerful experience at the time.